Go ahead.
So, I think that obviously we're more or less at the beginning of our 2027 budget process here. But one of the things that I've been struck by in my approximately now 1 year on council is just how thin all of the operating margins are here in this city. And, whether that's the police department and their dispatch team, who also is also the jailers, right? And they wear multiple hats actually within that department, whether it's the actual sworn officers who are regularly required to work extra shifts and cancel vacations and time off to meet the staffing needs, whether that's the maintenance team and the public works team who, clearly fall behind when we have, storm events and other types of events. And, there's no kind of flex. There's no margin for error. It takes them weeks to catch up with things like, putting broken stop signs back up, right? There's just, everything is running at capacity and in many cases, above capacity. And so then when events happen, whether it's someone gets sick, their colleague, or a storm blows through, we're playing catch up. So that's one thing that, I feel that any budget that we looked at last year, any budget that we're looking at today reflects that type of incredibly tight tolerance. And I just want the public to really be aware of that this is not a budget where there's, lots of extra money thrown in and there's just sort of people floating around doing very little. There's also a whole laundry list of very specific items that we have left on the table. We left it on the table last year for 2026. I am almost certain we're going to leave most of it on the table again for next year. It's the City Hall parking garage and necessary repairs to that. It's anything to do with City Hall itself, which is a separate structure. It's additional sworn police officers to alleviate some of the issues I just talked about. Any kind of new police technology, including drones or real-time crime center. It's anything to do with significant mitigation of the Malaga Cove water intrusion problem. I've talked about needing an additional parklands supervisor who could help manage wildfire risks and all of the 28% of open space we have in the city. Stuff involving our sewers and storm drains. And I think my new favorite example, because it really just puts a point on it, are the trees. And we have approximately 20,000 trees in the city. I recently learned that Whittier has a somewhat equivalent number of trees. Whittier spends $2.2 million a year on their trees. We spend about $350,000, right? So, Carmel by the Sea is another one I like to point to. They have about half as many trees as we have. They spend well over $1 million, right? So I think when you look at those kinds of numbers, when you look at Whittier, when you look at Carmel by the Sea, granted, it's just one line item, it's our trees. But PV just has a history of maybe not being realistic about how much it costs to manage some of our, I like to talk about, we have assets, we have liabilities. Sometimes our assets and our liability are the same thing. The trees can be both, right? They are a liability. So anyway, I think it's just important to make note of all of that. So as folks hear us, try to whittle down the deficit and hear us sort of work through this process over the next couple of months, they'll sort of understand that the starting position is one that is already, frankly, leaving a lot on the table that in many respects, beyond these comments, I don't know it's even worth bringing up because we're already in such a severe deficit situation.